Welcome to Built Different. I'm Erin Sykes, business analyst, real estate professional, and someone who's endlessly curious about the systems that shape how we live, grow, and spend. Each week, I dive into the markets, mindsets, and moments that define our lives, from real estate to wealth, psychology, relationships, and everything in between. Because what we build is not just financial, it's human.
I'm Jessica Baum, and I'm built different because I lead with my heart.
Welcome back to Built Different. I'm Erin Sykes, and today we have Jessica Baum, who is a psychotherapist and author of 2 books. The first was Anxiously Attached, which I read a few years ago and was an amazing book that really set the groundwork for a lot of relationships and dynamics within my life. And then the second one was Safe, and that came out in 2025. She'll give us a little bit more about that and what she has in the works going forward. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So we originally met probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more, maybe like 5 or 6 when I was a client. And it's so nice to see you outside of your office.
So nice to see you too. And seem like you're doing great. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. And I took a lot of the tools that, we discussed back then and have applied it in my life in so many different ways. And I think it's so interesting how attachment style really translates into business. And I'm curious, are most of your clients relationship focused, or do they take it into their personal lives and their business lives as well?
It's a mixture, but I think relational issues exist like in your personal romantic relationships and also at work. So depending on, what is kind of getting kicked up in you, and they'll bring it into the office.
Mm-hmm. What are some ways that anxiety presents itself in business?
I think anxiety in business is probably overanalyzing, scared to take risks, not having appropriate mentors, picking people that don't resonate with you or don't have a clear path with you. Like you're talking about anxious attachment, like how that could show up.
Yeah.
Over depending on people, not learning how to do certain processes yourself. I think anxious people have to learn how to become somewhat independent in terms of like knowing their business well, rather than depending too much. You kind of want to know a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And what would be the opposite extreme of that?
Like maybe an avoidant person would just want to do it all themselves, and they would never ask for help, and they wouldn't hire a ton of people. They would take more on. And
wait, I think I have myself backwards. Keep going, because I really think I'm more avoidant now.
Yeah, avoidant people are like, I got this. And I'm too vulnerable to ask for help, or I'm going to figure it all out on my own. And an anxious person is the first person to raise their hand. And even when they don't need to raise their hand, they'll raise their hand and ask for help.
Oh, this is so interesting, because when we were working together because of my relationships, I was more anxious in those relationships. However, in my business persona, I think I'm definitely more avoidant. And my hardest thing for me is to relinquish control.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is your attachment patterns show up different in different relational places and with different people. So you might pick more avoidant men and show up anxious in your romantic life, but you might show up more avoidant in your career life, or your boss might be anxious. Like different people, different situations bring out different patterns. You're never just one pattern.
Interesting. And I think that was something that was revolutionary to me, is that the different people bring out different sides of you. So it's not like you're always the same, I guess, patterning in all of your relationships. Sometimes when you have, is it more when somebody has the opposite of you or similarities to you? Like what would bring out those extremes?
It's very nuanced, but like if you and I were partners, eventually we would be getting connected together, and your relational stuff and my relational stuff would start to do a dance. And depending on how those patterns, what you do when you're scared, what you do when you're nervous, how that hits my nervous system, what I do when I'm nervous, how we communicate or not communicate, how we rupture, how we repair, all depends on the individual and how they deal with stress and rupture and repair. So it's very nuanced. I mean, yes, we like to have like categories, like if it's an avoidant man, he's going to act this way. But it's so much more layered and complicated than that.
Absolutely. Now, how would somebody who is more avoidant show up, during a business deal, during be it, real estate or some type of difficult financial transaction, what are some of the maybe red flags somebody could pick up on that would help them then navigate that situation with the individual?
A true, like someone who has a lot of avoidance actually makes pretty good business person because they can detach emotionally and make a lot of decisions based on logistics. They're less likely to show their cards and more likely to be better negotiators, but they don't have, like, they're not going to be emotional in the situation as much. And so sometimes for business, and unfortunately it works, they're also more primed for success and transaction. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's rewarded in our culture.
How does that then shift into different personality styles in beyond of anxiously avoidant or anxiously attached and avoidant?
Yeah, so I mean, when we're talking about like personality styles, it gets too complicated to try to take attachment and personality styles and mend them completely, because if you want to look at narcissism or anything like that, you can have many different adaptive patterns inside of you. Like everyone wants to stereotype and say, oh, the dismissive avoidant is the narcissist. But that's so not the truth. Early attachment wounds create defense mechanisms that can look like borderline personality or narcissism, but it's really early attachment infancy trauma that is coming out in adult relational ways with protectors that person has that they're not even always consciously aware of.
Does the overuse of the word narcissism or narcissist make your skin crawl?
A little bit. I mean, I've experienced narcissism firsthand, and it exists, but I think understanding it the way that I do, I actually have a lot of compassion around people being so early wounded that I think the label just gets thrown around a lot. And yeah, I do have like I try to be as compassionate as I can. I'm like, if you have a narcissistic wound, you might do awful things in the world, but you're also miserable and suffering so much yourself. So knowing that, it's kind of like always, as it's thrown around, it's such an easy label to like villainize people.
And I think that because our culture, again, rewards putting yourself out there, being on social media, and doing a lot of things that maybe are narcissistic, maybe are not narcissistic, maybe are mislabeled as narcissistic. I think the people then kind of perpetuate a lot of the falsities or the generalizations or the stereotypes without really understanding what's at the core of a narcissistic person.
Yeah, I mean, and I go into deep detail into narcissism in the book around their wound and how they show up in the world to try to protect themselves. The frustrating part with people with narcissism is it's very hard to have like a very successful relationship with them. So relationally, it just can become very exhausting and taxing to try to get them to understand, to step out of their world, to see into your world. They don't have that capacity. So I think just knowing that people are at different levels, like full-blown narcissistic wound, and we live in a culture that promotes narcissism, right? So, but that's different than a full-blown narcissistic wound. So like, just know the spectrum is out there. We all have narcissism, and I have a narcissistic side, right? Like it's good to be aware of that, and I think awareness is important.
With everything. Now, tell me more about your books. And I know Anxiously Attached has been out for a few years now, right?
Since 2022.
2022. And how is that different than Safe?
So Anxiously Attached, it was my first book. I was in a relationship doing a lot of work, and it really focuses on the anxious avoidant dance. It focuses on people who identify as being codependent, who want to start to understand the nervous system, start to understand why they have certain behaviors. I mean, it sells like hotcake, that book. It's the book I think everybody who's ever picked up a codependency book should read, because it's the neuroscience around that, and it's a much deeper explanation. Safe is a deeper dive into all the attachment styles, and it's a deeper dive into what healing actually feels like. It's a deeper book. Like a lot of people want to know the left hemisphere shift of these are the styles and this, let's break it down. Safe is like you want to heal, let's go into the wound. This is how we hold the wound. This is where it's held in the body. This is implicit information. This is how memory is stored. Here's the science. This is what's going on when you're healing. So I provide the reader with like a full understanding of what it means to heal attachment wounds. And so it just goes very deep into that.
And is it meant that people should read Anxiously Attached first and then move into Safe?
Not necessarily, but I would say that Safe is a little bit more, it's a little more complex of a book. It's a harder read.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of people who, recognize some, I wouldn't even say flaws. And I know that we all have things that we want to work on, and we tend to be tougher on ourselves than we are with other people a lot of the time. What's the first step in that for the general population? How do you start this self-work?
So when we study attachment, we talk about attachment, everything is an adaptation. So it's you brilliantly adapted to your first experience and you're still brilliantly adapting. So we take away the shame and say all your behaviors make sense. And now let's go back to the origin and figure out why your behaviors make sense. And I think once you can start to figure out, oh my God, this is why I'm doing this, we start to shift our relationship to ourselves. We start to have more compassion for our behaviors, and our behaviors don't necessarily change once we have awareness. We have to start to be with what the behaviors are protecting us from. It's layered. So I think the beginning is just having compassion for your own human behaviors and starting to understand why they're there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of working with a therapist, do you think everybody should work with a therapist at some point? Or do you think that, is there more of an ebb and flow between when you see your clients and maybe they don't come as often? How does that work?
So in Safe, I talk about finding anchors. And in order to heal relational wounds, you need to be in relational places and you need to have relationships that are healthy. So you need to re-experience some of your trauma in a healthy container and dynamic. It does not have to be a therapist. Not all therapists have the capacity, but it does need to be another nervous system that holds a state of safety in their nervous system while you process your earlier stuff. So I explain like exactly what that is. Like I have a couple anchors and I have a therapist too, but like anchors can exist in many forms and not everyone can afford to go to a therapist. Most of my clients are with me for a period of time as they work through the implicit information, but not all of them. So it all depends. But I think finding safe people to process and actually hold what you're experiencing rather than fix it, try to resolve it, give you advice, like that's not how we heal. We heal by being with what's going on inside of us and finding people that have the capacity to show up for us and everything that's going on.
What are some characteristics, or how can you really see that somebody is a safe place, it's an anchor for you? Are there cues that somebody should look for?
Warm, non-judgmental, doesn't try to fix you, listens, reflects, and that's not so easy to come by.
No. And I think as we get older, there's fewer people who we resonate with. My friend circle has gotten much smaller as I've gotten older. And I've also started to be really prioritized in terms of what I dedicate my time to. And I'm very proud of it because I think it is a sense of maturity versus when I was younger, I'd spread myself very thin. Mm-hmm. I would go to all of the events. I would never say no to people. And I would bend over backwards to make people happy at the sake of, myself or my energy levels or whatever. So I think that finding those anchors in my life, it's not a life partner right now, but it is different friends. And it took a lot of work.
Oh my God. Same here. I have a couple anchors in my life and I don't know what I would do without them and I cherish them. I have a lot of people in my life, but only a few people I rely on emotionally. And I remember I was out in the Hamptons this summer. I got gifted a house and I was with my friend Ruben. And every morning I called my best friend, Julia, and he's like, and we talked and I said, I love you. And we checked in. He's like, you're just so lucky to have people in your life that you call and you check in with and they care about you. They're asking you where they are. She's in Spain right now. Like I have a few of those people and I cherish them so much. And I think that yeah, you're lucky and they're hard to find. And when you get them, you take care of them because they make your world stable and safe. Especially if you don't have a primary romantic relationship, it's really important to have. It's important to have both.
Absolutely. And I think as we find those individuals, and at least this is my hope, right? As I've found these anchors in other parts of my world, I'm so happy in my life right now. I am happy with the distribution of my time geographically. I'm happy with the friends that I have found. Eventually that partner, that romantic partner is just going to come into place versus younger me seeking it out on the apps, drive myself, multiple dates a week. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I went through a breakup, and for about 2.5 years, I didn't date at all. And I was in this really, really, really good place. And I think, and I was talking to a few people, and I'm dating someone right now, but I think that for me energetically, like I needed to go, I needed to be in alignment and open and ready. And like, that's different for every single person. And that's different than getting on the apps and like needing a relationship. It's more like, am I open and ready to receive that? And like 2 years ago, no, it just takes what it takes. I mean, everybody's so different.
Yeah. Now, in terms of how you got to where you are, your practice is based in Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
What was the evolution? Were you always focused on attachment?
No. So in the beginning, I was in the addiction field and I focused on family treatment. So yeah, codependency families, helping the families of addicts look at their own shit. So everyone wants to look at the addict and their behavior. So I kind of built a niche working with families, turning the work inward on them. And then I was in a relationship that brought me to couples counseling, a format called Imago. It takes a couple years to get trained additionally. And I did this Imago therapy with this man. And I was like, wow, I have so much work to do. And then I was like, I want to become Imago trained. So then I did a couple years of just extensive couples training because I was so fascinated with like how much that couple process like opened up within me. So then I became kind of well known for couples work. And then that led to the attachment work. And I actually do a lot more individual work now. I have like a mixed bag, but I can't take on that many couples in 1 week because it's a different type of holding space.
Mm-hmm. And how does it work when you're working with couples versus an individual? I'd imagine couples, obviously there's two people there. Are the appointments longer? Is the dynamic more challenging?
It's a completely different dynamic because in Imago, they face each other and I put them in dialogue. So I'm outside of the system and the energetic system, but my nervous system is holding the space. And an individual session, it's one-on-one. So it's a very different thing. Every couple is different and every individual is different. Some couples need 90 minutes or a longer period of time. Some can't handle it. Some clients, I have a client who does a half an hour every 2 weeks, and I have other clients who do 90 minutes straight. It depends on what your nervous system can handle. When I meet with someone, I kind of gauge where they're at, and we figure it out from there. And even with couples, like some of them, yes, they can go for a long time, and then some don't have the capacity to go that long because it's pretty intense and intimate.
And do you see a lot of people triggered in those situations? I mean, I would imagine that some people can't handle it at all and would just walk out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to create like in Imago, the first session creates like a lot of connection, and you hope that there's enough of a resonance in the first session that they have enough safety to come back. I haven't had many people just walk out right in the beginning, but yeah, I mean, it's intimidating. I mean, I think a lot of the people that would just walk up would probably not even show up, right? So it depends.
Yeah, well, that was the situation that I was in when we initially met. You had suggested the Imago to me, and then my partner just wouldn't come. So that was like a really easy kind of decision that kind of triggered me into, all right, well, if somebody's not even going to try, then it's not going to work.
And I think coming to therapy is so hard for certain types. I don't understand it. I'm on the other end. I'm like, help me, let me help myself. But I think a lot of people struggle with it. But I also think when you're in partnership, like you want to have a partner that's willing to at least do some work on themselves. And, having that conversation of like, if this gets hard, are you willing to like reflect and get some advice and do some work, I think it's important, because if they're not willing, then it says a lot about their fear of vulnerability or their fear to be in a position of like receiving help. And that can be challenging when you hit real roadblocks.
And I think that translates in the romantic relationship. And again, back to the business relationships, there are certain people who it's almost like their entire personality changes once you bring finances into the equation. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me, especially because most of my business is referral based or people I know already. They're friends for dozens of years. And then you bring money into the situation and I'm like, oh my God, I do not know you.
Yeah, I think when money comes to the table, it can get really emotional and yeah, it stirs things up. I'm sure, I'm definitely in my world and in your world too, because you're dealing with large transactions and people buying their homes.
Yeah. And I'm curious how attachment factors into people's feelings about finances.
I've never been asked this question before. I think that it would be very hard to really make a specific judgment, like, oh, an anxious person might be more anxious about finances. That's not necessarily true. An avoidant person could be more. I don't know that it crosses over that well. I think a secure person in life might be like more flexible with finances and more realistic around their thinking with finances and not as extreme. But yeah, a hard crossover to do.
Yeah, I think that there's something with scarcity mindset and finances that then factors into how people pursue certain purchases. And there are some people who just go into every transaction and think they're going to get screwed. And no matter what, they've got that chip on their shoulder and somebody's going to take advantage of them and somehow they're going to lose money. And even when there's like really no tip off and everybody's on the same page.
Chances are at some point in their life, they did get screwed. Like if you really did some digging, like their protective strategies, which are probably really challenging for you, are probably there because somewhere in their life, and it might not have been financially, they trusted someone and it didn't go well. And so they learned, I can't trust, And so until they have so many, we call them disconfirming experiences where you trust, and their nervous system's like, okay, it's okay to trust. It's okay to trust. They're going to go to their protective strategy is, I've learned that it's not okay to trust. And so I'm going to put all the walls up.
Is there anything you can do when you're on the other side to help them to trust you?
Well, and asking them, what do they need? Giving them the time that they need, being really great at communication skills, trying not to get on the roller coaster with them. Like I think in my experience, anytime you want someone to move forward, like put your agenda down and let them be exactly where they're at and like kind of surrender that place and then ask them exactly what they need. And then usually they can feel that energy and then they usually move forward, which is an anxious avoidant dynamic. So yeah, I would say don't put the pressure on. I would say take the pressure off, ask them what they need, give them the space, and chances are they'll move forward because they'll feel safe and they won't feel so much pressure.
Absolutely. I feel like in my just recent experiences, there have been quite a few, and maybe this is due to just general economic environment, which is kind of tumultuous right now because we are at war and we do have a lot of stuff going on. And I think that's trickling into people's personalities in ways that they don't even recognize. The stock market's not, roaring like it has been for 4 years. And I think the people are going through this reality check. And naturally, it sometimes comes off as rejection onto other people and it maybe feeling like they're going to get screwed. And I've been able to just kind of chill out and go through it with them and not get on the roller coaster. And I don't think that would have happened 5 years ago.
Which is great, that you can detach in that level. And I also think we are living in really different times. Like, I'm not sure, West Palm Beach obviously is blowing up and property values, I'm sure you could talk for days, are insane. And we're living in really uncharted territories, I believe, for the first time in a long time. There's a lot of fear, right? And some of the fear is valid. Like, there's a lot going on in the world. And some of the fear can't take over choices that we need to make to sustain our life, and kind of finding that balance of like, what do I need for me and what's like fear-based and what's rational fear to have in this situation.
I think that's important, that rational fear, because it is uncharted territory that we're all going through simultaneously. We've never gone through days like this with the internet and with social media,
AI.
24-hour news cycles and AI. It's just like, it's a lot. I mean, I don't watch the news anymore. And I think that's been super good for my mental health, because it's not that I don't care. Clearly, I care, but I see this same content 12 other different ways. So I don't need to see it on repeat all the time.
Yeah, like that brings up, like, I used to watch the news so much and I just felt like I was giving it all my energy. And I feel like I don't watch it enough anymore. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a bubble either. So like, where's that like sweet middle where you're informed, but you're not getting like sucked in?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that we have such a choice now in terms of the content that we watch, and making sure that when you open your social media feed or whatever new channel you watch, et cetera, it's not all fear mongering all of the time, because it's exhausting.
Yeah. No, my algorithm does not do that. It's sending me all this crazy other stuff that I enjoy. Thank God I am not getting that much news.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think people need to make conscious decisions about what their algorithm looks like, because everybody assumes that it's just like, oh, it's things that I like. It's things that are good for me to see. But a lot of times you have to retrain it, and maybe it's not the best things for you to see.
Yeah, we can reset it.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
It's a body in motion. Now, what about kids? Do you work with children?
I have we have a lot. I have 5 therapists on my team, and some of them specialize with children. I have had teenager. I don't personally work with like younger than that, but we have people on my team that do.
Are there parents that are doing really great things in terms of how they're raising their kids? Is there any advice that you can offer?
Oh God, it's a challenging world to have a kid in these days. I would say like learning to be with your kid through their emotional experience rather than fix it. So if your kid had a bad day at school, or is going through a fight, or is going through something, to like put the agenda down and just be with your kid as they're processing it. A lot of parents want to fix it, or they get frustrated, or they're not emotionally available. So learning how to be emotionally available means you don't always have to fix everything. You just have to learn to be present with your kid, and being present with your child consistently is literally the number one ingredient for secure attachment. It's not love. And everyone thinks it's love. My parents surely loved me, but it's the emotional ability to be present and attuned. Now, some parents can't do that because they don't have the capacity for it. But if you're listening and you do have the capacity, that is number one thing that your child needs.
So, can you go into more of that? How do you differentiate between love and being with your child? I think that, to me, that blur is really apparent, and I don't know how to separate the two.
I mean, I think a lot of parents love their kids, but I think a lot of people in our culture are too busy. Their nervous systems are in constant activation. They're preoccupied. They don't slow down. They're not with themselves. They're not present with their kids because they're just in hustle culture. And I think we're demographically around the same age. And I grew up with a very career-driven mother, and I idealized have a big career, do this, do that. And I was actually a workaholic for a while. And I slowed down to be with myself, and I was a stepmom, and I slowed down for them. And I learned how to slow down and be present with them, and it was like a game changer for me. So I would think a lot of parents are trying to survive, keep up with the Joneses, they're too busy, they haven't done their own work. Just slowing down and being with yourself so you can be more present with your kid is the best gift you can kind of give your child.
I think that's great advice. In terms of shifting your attachment style, or, how you need to respond to people, becoming that anchor for other people, are there, a few key tips, takeaways that you would give to people?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. So if you're in a relationship and your attachment system is being activated constantly, that's an opportunity for you either to leave a relationship that the person won't do work with you, or take that activation to an anchor and start to realize, okay, this person is activating my system, but let me go to the origin of it. So now they're a portal in so I can get out of the trauma or, bond or loop. But it's nuanced and layered. I mean, I would say the agency is you always have a choice to slow down and find an anchor and do some of your own work, no matter where your romantic situation's at. And if your partner's willing to do work, to do it together.
Somebody reads your book, they read Anxiously Attached, and they're able to see themselves as, yeah, I'm anxiously attached. Or in contrast, maybe they're avoidant, or maybe they're great and they're, secure and they can, ebb and flow naturally, perfectly. How would somebody, I guess, A, identify themselves as one or the other, or B, then work on it?
Yeah, I mean, so there's so many. I have an attachment style quiz I could give you if you email me, but you can just take a quiz and
We
you can see
attach
where
it.
you lean.
Mhm.
There are certain hallmarks for each one. So I would say for anxious, in order to regulate with our primary caregiver, they were dysregulated and anxious, so we would leave our body to take care of them. So we're going to be the people who self-abandon and people please. That's the pattern, right? And so it comes with a lot of other things. True avoidance learned my parents are not there. They're two left hemispheres shifted. So I don't reach out for my needs and I've become super independent. So they're the people who really struggle with vulnerability and raising their hand. Disorganized, which is also called fearful avoidant, but scientifically is called disorganized, is I need my parents so bad, but they also terrify me. Either they're neglectful or they're rageful or they're angry. So I'm stuck in my body and I need to reach out, but I can't reach out. And I'm stuck in this very freeze state of terror. And then secure is my parents there. They're attuning to me enough of the time that I know my needs are going to be met. Even when they're not met perfectly, I have this inherent trust that the needs will get met. So they walk around the planet knowing, oh, my needs are going to be met, And so these different patterns get embedded in us. And in order to heal them, we have to be with the nervous system state that they were created in and tie it back to that time and also receive what we didn't get. So if we were abandoned, we need to be held in that. If we were judged, we need to be accepted. If we were sad, we need to be comforted, right? My nervous system had terror in it, the terror of being like completely abandoned for a few years when my parents were going through a divorce needed to be held and witnessed by another nervous system in order to move it out of my body up into my right hemisphere and integrated into my left. So there's a whole scientific process around what healing really is. I actually really provide that in the book because I don't want people to think, oh, here's your attachment style and whatever. This is how you move it. This is how you heal it. So I talk about memory and how it's stored in the body and how you need another safe nervous system in order to really integrate it.
Is having the other nervous system and not just a sounding board, like a non-human sounding board, like ChatGPT.
ChatGPT cannot heal your trauma. ChatGPT can validate you. It can hold you in between. There are some uses for it, but be careful with it because it's a sycophant as well. But ChatGPT, you need to be witnessed by another nervous system. Not only that, if my nervous system is in a state of safety and we're in therapy together and I'm going into your body and you're regressing, you're going to feel my nervous system's, it's called the ventral state. And so if you regress, my system will hold your system. And as you share, oh, my mom, this happened to me, and I'm witnessing you and I'm having compassion for you and I'm meeting your experience with you, you're changing the memory within your system with my system because it's accompanying you in the places that you probably weren't accompanied.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, there's something spiritual about it. I know
Totally.
that, maybe I'm getting a little bit woo-woo, but I think having it be a human on the other side of the equation completely changes the dynamic.
I wrote Safe, and like my publishers and people, I struggled because if you read Safe, like I basically say, it's not woo-woo, it's science. You can't heal relational issues alone. And I suffered so much because of that. Like I wrote Anxiously Attached for the very codependent me who was so anxious in relationship, read every single self-help book, probably why I'm a self-help author, and then realized later when I really studied the neuroscience that I can't heal this without another person. So I wrote it to let people know, no, don't sit in your apartment. I am a person, I'm an author, I'm co-regulating with you as you read my book, but you need other nervous systems in order to move the pain that's stored in your soma. And that's science. And I really, really go into detail so people get that message really clear. Because the other is independent, heal yourself is going to cause more harm, as it did to me and my generation.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's meaningful differences between generations and the patterns that you see? Millennials, Gen X, I mean.
Yeah, I think that I can make a general statement that our society is moving slowly or gradually, maybe even more than slowly, towards avoidance. So we are becoming more isolated, more lonely, more screen-based. Our need for human connection and community is so vast, and our society is programming us to be in ways that are not inherently how we're biologically wired to survive. And it's pushing us into more avoidance. And what avoidance can, the benefits of avoidance, the success, all those things, the independence that's pushed is really championed by our society. So I would say that avoidant attachment is probably a little bit more on the rise.
Interesting. It makes so much sense because I think that obviously we had the pandemic and that was very much isolating and it brought up a lot of things for people, deep emotions. And then even in the 5 years since then, the world has changed so quickly. It's hard to keep up, but it seems like it's just more and more and more online.
Yeah, I think that I'm so grateful that I was here and I was in a relationship and I didn't have an isolating experience, but I think the pandemic messed
people up.
Totally.
Kind of for good in a lot of cases.
Well, if you're listening, like now's the time to come out and get help and understand that you need human connection. And if you suffered during that time, like I believe it. Like that was a time where there was just a lot. I have so many friends that were in Manhattan that were isolated in their apartments. Like that was just a rough time. Yeah, it left a scar.
Yeah. And I think that it made people on the positive side, hyper aware of their feelings and their emotions and their need for social attachment. So maybe it did some good, just to play devil's advocate. But I do think that a lot of people really suffered.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you have on the horizon? Another book? What are you working on?
I'm in the beginning stages of co-authoring a third book with someone who studies manifestation, is very mystical. She studies somatic therapy. So we're going to do a book on how to work, basically how to manifest. I hate the word, but how to create the life you want, but also to meet the trauma that lives within you so that you're not recreating that, like how to break those loops. And I'm just really excited. Like I've had 2 successful books, but I've known this woman since 2018. I've gone on yoga retreats with her. She's such a badass. And I'm excited to share the process with someone that I respect. And I think with her manifestation and her science background, and she's so smart, and my relational background and my neuroscience, my interpersonal neurobiology, I think the combination of us is just going to be super powerhouse. For those of you listening, a traditional book takes like 2 years, and we're in the beginning of just putting together the pieces to get the offer. And then, so hopefully by this summer we'll have the offer, and then we have a year to write it and then a year to print. So we're looking at 2028. And I'm like, not around the presidential election, please. So working that out too.
Yeah, that could be stressful. Just adding another dynamic.
A lot of noise. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then how can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Jessica Baum LMHC. If you read my books and you reach out to me, I do try to respond personally to everyone. The Relationship Institute is my business in Palm Beach. And then I own another business called the Conscious Relationship Group, which is a global business where I have people working with internationally with clients.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's great to see you.
It's so great to see you. And thank you for having me and being such a great host.
Of course. Thanks for listening to Built Different with Erin Sykes. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to rate, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. For more insights and updates, follow along on Instagram and share this episode with someone who's building their own version of success. Until next time, keep building a life of value because we're all built a little different. I record Built Different at Pod Plus Studios in Jupiter, Florida. To reach my real estate team, visit sykesproperties.com, and to reach me directly, email Erin@sykesproperties.com.